Have you ever walked into a room and felt the temperature drop 10 degrees, not because of the air conditioning, but because of the people sitting inside? It's a specific kind of coldness. It's the chill of a trap snapping shut. It is the feeling of being a prey animal that has foolishly wandered into a den of predators. That is exactly how I felt the moment I stepped into the private dining room of that Italian restaurant in Irvine. My mother had promised me a healing brunch. She used words like closure, family unity, and moving forward. She told me it would just be us, sharing memories of my father, crying a little, and comforting each other. But when the hostess opened that heavy frosted glass door, there was no comfort waiting for me. There was no food on the table. There were no tissues for tears. There were just 5 people, sitting in absolute silence, staring at the empty chair where I was supposed to sit. I looked at their faces. My mother, Brenda, with her perfect makeup and eyes that looked like shattered glass. My stepfather, Gary, checking his Rolex as if my arrival was an inconvenience to his schedule. My step-siblings, Chloe and Josh, scrolling on their phones, barely lifting their heads to acknowledge my existence. And a stranger, a man in a sharp gray suit with a laptop open, his fingers hovering over the keyboard like a pianist waiting to strike a discordant chord. In that split second, my heart didn't just sink, it hammered against my ribs like a bird trying to break out of a cage. My throat tightened. I knew, with a sickening clarity, that I wasn't here for brunch. I was here for a shakedown. If you have ever been the black sheep, the scapegoat, or the outsider in your own family, you know this feeling. It is the paralyzing realization that the people who are supposed to protect you are actually the ones holding the knife. I am Emily. And this is the story of how my mother tricked me into a family meeting to steal my inheritance, and how I had to turn my heart into stone to survive it. Part 1: The Ghost in the Guest Room. To understand why that room felt so cold, you have to understand where I came from. I grew up in 2 different worlds. World number 1 was my dad's world. My father, Robert, was a man of quiet dignity. He was a software engineer who still packed a turkey sandwich for lunch every single day. He drove a Honda Accord that was old enough to vote, simply because the engine is still sound, Emily. He wasn't cheap, he was purposeful. He believed that money was a tool for freedom, not a prop for a performance. World number 2 was my mother's world. Brenda was magnificent, in a terrifying way. She was allergic to simplicity. She needed the validation of strangers. She wanted the house in the gated community, the leased Mercedes, the vacations that looked perfect on Facebook but were miserable in reality. When they divorced, I was 15. I remember the silence in the kitchen. My dad looked defeated, not because he lost the money, but because he realized he had spent 20 years trying to fill a bucket that had a hole in the bottom. My mother looked triumphant. She looked like she had just won a lottery she didn't buy a ticket for. I chose to live with my dad. It wasn't a hard choice. In his small condo, there was peace. We ate tacos on the floor on Friday nights. We watched black and white movies. He taught me how to read a spreadsheet, how to invest in index funds, and most importantly, he taught me that integrity is what you do when no one is watching. Meanwhile, my mother remarried Gary. Gary was a real estate agent who smiled too much and listened too little. He came with 2 children, Chloe and Josh. They formed this glossy, magazine cover family. They took photos in matching white linen outfits on the beach. They went skiing in Aspen. I was technically still her daughter, but I felt like a ghost. When I visited, I was a guest in their perfect life. I slept in the guest room, which was really just a storage room for Gary's golf clubs. At dinner, they would talk about vacations I wasn't invited to, and inside jokes I didn't understand. Chloe would look at my clothes, simple, practical clothes my dad bought, with a sneer of pity. Josh would just ignore me completely. I learned to make myself small. I learned that if I didn't ask for anything, I wouldn't be disappointed. But the one thing I couldn't shrink was my father's love for me. He saw everything. He saw how they treated me. He saw the pain in my eyes when my mom forgot my birthday because she was hosting a gala. He told me once, "Emily, you don't owe anyone your future. Not even your mother. Love is behavior. If the behavior isn't there, the obligation isn't there." I didn't know it then, but he was building a fortress around me. A legal fortress. Then came the accident. A rainy Tuesday. A drowsy driver. A phone call at 2 a.m. that shattered my universe. The grief was a physical weight. It felt like I was walking underwater. But my mother? For her, the funeral was a stage. She showed up in a designer black dress, weeping loudly, throwing herself onto the casket. She hugged people she hadn't spoken to in a decade, telling them how devastated she was, how Robert was the love of her life. I stood there, numb. I watched her performance and felt a wave of nausea. She didn't mourn the man, she mourned the ATM she had lost access to. Part 2, The Ambush. That brings us back to the restaurant. A week after the funeral, my dad's lawyer, Ms. Sterling, told me the news. Dad had left everything to me. The condo, the retirement accounts, the stocks. All of it. He had explicitly excluded my mother. He had even put in a clause that said if anyone challenged the will, they would be automatically disinherited from any minor token gifts. My mom found out. The texts started. First, they were sweet. Then, they were desperate. Finally, they were demanding. "We need to talk about fairness. Your father would want us to share. Think of your brother and sister." And then, the invitation to the family meeting. I sat down at that table in the private room. The leather chair felt cold against my legs. I looked at the glass of water in front of me, watching the condensation slide down, trying to focus on anything but the 5 pairs of eyes drilling into me. "Emily," my mom said. Her voice was soft, dangerously soft. "Thank you for coming. We just want to have an open conversation." The stranger in the suit cleared his throat. "I'm Daniel," he said, sliding a business card across the polished wood. "I'm representing the family's interests in the estate restructuring." Restructuring. What a sterile word for theft. He pushed a thick document toward me. "This is a family settlement agreement. It corrects the oversights in your father's will." I looked down at the paper. The numbers blurred, but the bottom line was clear. They wanted me to sign over 65% of my inheritance into a family trust managed by, you guessed it, Gary and my mother. "Why?" I asked. My voice sounded small, shaky. I hated how weak I sounded. "Because it's fair," Gary said, leaning forward. His cologne was overpowering, a mix of musk and aggression. "Your dad didn't think about the big picture. Chloe and Josh are starting college. Life is expensive. We are a family, Emily. We share." I looked at Chloe. She was popping her gum, looking at her fingernails. She didn't even look up. She was waiting for her cut of the money my father died for. I looked at Josh. He was texting someone, probably complaining that this meeting was taking too long. The apathy was worse than the greed. They didn't hate me. They just didn't care about me. To them, I wasn't a sister or a daughter. I was an obstacle. I was a password they needed to crack. I was a signature they needed to extract. "And if I don't sign?" I asked. The lawyer, Daniel, smiled. It was a shark's smile. "Then we enter litigation. We contest the will. We freeze the assets. It could take years, Emily. The legal fees will drain the estate anyway. Your credit could be impacted. It gets ugly. We're trying to protect you," my mom added. She reached out to touch my hand, and I flinched. "We don't want you to have to deal with the burden of all that money alone. You're not good with finances, sweetie. You never were." That was the lie that broke the dam. Not good with finances? I was the one who balanced my dad's checkbook. I was the one who managed our household budget while she was maxing out credit cards. I felt a fire ignite in my chest. It started in my stomach and rose up to my throat, burning away the fear. I looked at my mother, really looked at her, and I didn't see a parent. I saw a stranger. I saw a woman who would cannibalize her own child to keep up appearances. I took a deep breath. The shaking in my hands stopped. I need to count, I said softly. What? Gary asked, annoyed. I need to count who is here. I pointed a finger at my mom. 1. I pointed at Gary. 2. I pointed at Chloe and Josh. 3. 4. I pointed at the lawyer. 5. The room went deadly silent. The air conditioner hummed. A waiter walked past the frosted glass door, a shadow in a different world. You are a lot of people, I said, my voice steady now. You brought an army. This isn't a game, Emily, my mom hissed, her mask slipping. Sign the damn papers. I smiled. It was a cold smile. I felt like my father was standing right behind me, his hand on my shoulder, lending me his strength. You're right, I said. It's not a game. That's why I didn't come alone either. I pulled my phone from my pocket, unlocked it, and sent a single character, a period. What are you doing? Gary demanded, standing up. Waiting, I said. 3 seconds later. Knock. 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 The sound was sharp, precise, authoritative. The door swung open. Ms. Sterling stepped in. She didn't look like a suburban mom. She looked like a gladiator in a navy blue blazer. She held a leather briefcase in one hand and a terrifying amount of confidence in the other. Good afternoon, she said. Her voice didn't boom, but it commanded the room. I am Ms. Sterling, attorney for the estate of Robert Davis. And I believe you are attempting to coerce my client into signing a document under duress. The energy in the room shifted instantly. The predator became the prey. My mother's face went pale, then red. This is a private family meeting, she shrieked. Not anymore, Ms. Sterling said, walking over and standing next to me. She placed a hand on the back of my chair. Unless you want to discuss the legal definition of extortion and undue influence in front of a judge, I suggest you retract that document immediately. Gary sat down, deflated. The lawyer, Daniel, closed his laptop. He knew he had lost. He knew they were bluffing, and we had just called it. I stood up. I looked down at my mother. She looked small now. Pathetic. I'm leaving, I said. Don't contact me again. I walked out. I didn't look back. I wanted to vomit, but I also wanted to fly. I had survived the ambush. Part 3, The Invisible War. But narcissists don't give up that easily. When they can't control you with guilt, they try to control you with fear. Ms. Sterling warned me. Emily, she said in the parking lot, they are desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. Watch your accounts. Watch your back. I went home to my dad's empty condo. It was quiet, but now the silence felt heavy. I felt watched. A few days later, the digital assault began. It started with small things. My Netflix password was changed. Then my Amazon account. Then, I started getting emails from my bank, hundreds of them. Subscription confirmed. Newsletter sign up. It was a technique called email bombing, designed to bury the real security alerts under a mountain of spam. I didn't panic. I went into dad mode. I sat at his desk, opened his laptop, and started locking everything down. I changed every password to a random string of 20 characters. I set up two-factor authentication on everything. I called the credit bureaus and froze my credit. Then, I bought the cameras. A Ring doorbell for the front. A small, hidden camera for the hallway. I felt like a spy in my own life. I was sleeping with my phone under my pillow. I jumped at every shadow. I wondered, is this paranoia? Am I going crazy? Is my own mother really trying to rob me? 2 weeks later, on a Tuesday night, I got my answer. It was 11:30 p.m. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Motion detected, front door. My heart stopped. Then it started racing, a frantic drumbeat in my ears. I grabbed the phone. My fingers were cold. I opened the app. The screen flickered to life in grainy night vision green. There was a car parked across the street. I recognized the silhouette immediately. It was Gary's SUV. The engine was idling. The glow of a laptop screen illuminated his face from below, making him look like a ghost. And then, movement at my door. I switched to the doorbell camera. There she was. My mother. She was wearing a hoodie, pulled up to hide her face, but I knew her posture. I knew her hands. She was standing by the bank of mailboxes for my condo complex. She had a thin metal tool in her hand. She was trying to fish mail out of my slot. My phone pinged again. A notification from my bank app, new login attempt detected. Verify identity? The pieces clicked together in my mind with terrifying precision. They weren't just vandalizing. They were timing it. Gary was in the car, trying to trigger a password reset or a login that required a code. My mom was at the mailbox, trying to intercept the physical mail or use the forgot password method that sends a code to a trusted device if they could get close enough to my Wi-Fi. It was a coordinated attack. It was identity theft. I sat there in the dark, watching my mother try to break into my life on a 5-inch screen. I felt a profound sadness wash over me. This was the woman who gave birth to me. This was the woman who had once bandaged my scraped knees. And now? Now she was a criminal in a hoodie, trying to steal the last thing my father gave me. But then, the sadness turned to ice. I didn't scream. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't run out there to confront them. I hit the record button. I recorded Gary in the car. I recorded my mom at the mailbox. I took screenshots of the bank notifications with the timestamps matching the video. I logged into my router and took a screenshot of the guest Wi-Fi connection attempt. I gathered evidence. I built a case. I let them dig their own grave, pixel by pixel. Part 4, The Fallout. The courtroom was vast and smelled of floor wax and old wood. It was a place of serious business, a place where lies went to die. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Ms. Sterling. My hands were folded on the table. They weren't shaking anymore. On the other side of the aisle sat my mother and Gary. They looked diminished. My mom wasn't wearing her flashy jewelry. She was wearing a modest gray cardigan, trying to look like a confused, harmless grandmother. Gary looked gray, like he hadn't slept in weeks. Their lawyer tried to spin a story. He talked about family misunderstandings. He said my mother was just checking on my well-being that night. He said they were worried about my mental health and were trying to help manage my finances. It was a disgusting performance. Then, it was our turn. Ms. Sterling didn't make a speech. She just played the video. On the giant monitors mounted on the wall, the room watched in silence. They saw the timestamp, 11:32 p.m. They saw Gary's face lit by the laptop. They saw my mother using a wire hook to fish for mail. They saw the bank logs aligning perfectly with their actions. There is no way to spin that. You cannot explain away a hoodie and a lockpick at midnight. I looked at my mom while the video played. She wasn't looking at the screen. She was looking at her lap, her hands twisting a tissue into shreds. For the first time, I realized she wasn't crying because she was sorry. She was crying because her image, the one thing she valued above all else, was being destroyed. The judge was a stern woman with glasses perched on the end of her nose. She looked over the evidence, then looked at my mother with an expression of pure disdain. "Mrs. Davis," the judge said. Her voice echoed in the room. "The bond between a parent and child is sacred. To exploit that bond, to use your intimate knowledge of your daughter's life to commit fraud, is not just criminal. It is morally repugnant." The gavel came down. It sounded like a gunshot. The verdict was devastating for them. They were found liable for attempted identity theft and harassment. The judge granted a 5-year restraining order. They could not contact me, come near my home, or mention my name online. They were ordered to pay all my legal fees, which were substantial, and punitive damages. But the real blow came for Gary. Because of the fraud conviction involving financial assets, the state licensing board revoked his real estate license. In an instant, his career was over. The golden goose was dead. As we walked out of the courtroom, a hallway felt incredibly wide. The air felt lighter. My mother was standing near the exit, arguing with her lawyer in a hushed, frantic whisper. When she saw me, she stopped. She broke away and took a step toward me. "Emily," she said. Her voice cracked. It was the voice she used when she wanted something. "Emily, please. We're ruined. You can't let this happen. We're family." I stopped. I looked at her. I thought about the little girl who used to wait by the window for her mom to come home, only to be ignored. I thought about my dad, eating his sandwich in his old car so I could have a college fund. I thought about the ambush in the restaurant. I thought about the hoodie in the mailbox. "No," I said. It was a complete sentence. "You're not family," I told her, my voice calm and final. "You're just people I used to know." I turned my back on her. I walked out the double doors into the bright, blinding sunshine of the afternoon. I heard her calling my name, but it sounded distant, like a noise from a radio station that was fading out of range. It has been 6 months since that day. People ask me if I'm happy. Happy is a complicated word. I am grieving my father. I am grieving the mother I never really had. But I am free. I wake up in the morning in my dad's condo, and the air is peaceful. I check my phone, and there are no guilt-tripping texts. No threats. No demands. I used a portion of the settlement money to start a scholarship in my father's name for engineering students who need financial aid. I think he would have liked that. He would have liked seeing his hard-earned money building futures instead of buying designer handbags. My mother and Gary had to sell their big house. I heard through the grapevine that they are living in a small apartment now. The Instagram posts have stopped. The perfect family has dissolved. Chloe and Josh don't talk to them much anymore. It turns out, when the money dries up, so does the loyalty in that side of the family. I learned a hard lesson, one that I hope you never have to learn firsthand. We are taught that blood is thicker than water. We are taught to honor our parents no matter what. But biology is just biology. It's random chance. Real family isn't about DNA. It's about behavior. Real family protects you when you are vulnerable, they don't attack you. Real family celebrates your success, they don't try to steal it. Real family respects your boundaries, they don't try to break them down. If you are listening to this, and you have that knot in your stomach, that feeling that something isn't right with the people who are supposed to love you, trust your gut. If you feel like a prey animal in your own home, run. Protect your passwords. Freeze your credit. Document everything. And most importantly, remember what my dad told me, you don't owe anyone your future. My mom tried to trick me into a family meeting to take everything I had. She thought I was weak. She thought I was alone. But she forgot that I am my father's daughter. And I brought the one thing she never expected, the truth. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it wasn't easy to hear, but it was necessary to tell. If you have ever had to cut off a toxic family member to save yourself, I want you to know, you are not a bad person. You are a survivor. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find this channel and maybe, just maybe, it will help someone else dodge the bullet that was aimed at me. Tell me in the comments, if you were in that room, surrounded by 5 people pressuring you to sign, would you have folded? Or would you have fought back? I read every single comment. This is the Su Kanya Method, signing off. Stay safe, stay smart, and protect your peace.